Say hi there.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to your Thuya webinar. Okay.
I think she'll be okay.
Perfect. Thank you. Hi, guys. Okay, can everyone see my PowerPoint there? Just, you can put in the chat room because, you know, I can't really hear you. You can just put in the chat. Hi, hello. Good afternoon. Can everyone see the PowerPoint? Just put in the chat if you can see my, okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm excited to have you all here today to join me for Thuya brow lamination webinar. We're going to learn some tips and tricks and learn why Thuya should be the brow lamination that you should use. Okay, so I'm going to get started right away just because I want to get to the demo part, the really exciting part. That's, you know, why we're all here, right? And I want to thank you in advance for joining me today. I don't know how the weather is where you guys are, but it's beautiful here in Richmond Hill. It's sunny and it honestly feels like spring summer weather. It's supposed to be a high of 21 today. So I'm wishing you all good weather too. Okay, so I'm just going to start with the PowerPoint. So my name is Chinita. I will be your educator for today for the Thuya brow lamination. I'm going to close this chat because I'm not sure if you can see this chat on here, and I will close this just so it's not blocking your view. Okay, perfect. Okay, so why is Thuya the world? Hold on, my Zoom just ran into a problem. Let me get that back up. Give me 1 second, guys. It just closed my window. Tried to set everything up from before. Thank you for your patience. Just be 1 second. That's what I get for rushing. Okay. Okay, I think I've got it up and going. So I need a mouse. Okay, let me come back to the share screen here. Okay, can you guys see that again? I don't know, I ran into some problems with the webinar. So just let me know if you can see that. Okay, I'm gonna check the chat. Okay, perfect. Thank you. I see your responses there. Perfect. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so let's get back to why Thuya is the worldwide leader in eye care products. So they've been in the business of lash and brow treatment since 1988. They're represented in more than 50 countries, And they have their own lab in Barcelona, Spain. That's where they do all their research and development and bring these great products to you. They have the highest standards in quality and effectiveness, and they want to keep it affordable for you, the user. Thuya also uses the fine active ingredients, and they have the most innovative formulas to achieve high quality products. They're dermatologically and ophthalmologically tested. That's always a mouthful for me. So let's quickly talk about your brows. Brows have been a long-term trend. I would say that brows have been really hot for the last 4 to 5 years. And they're very important to framing the face. They give you a balanced and complete look when your brows are done. If you have brows that are too big or too dark, people are going to focus on your brows and not the overall face. So what you want your brows to balance out your entire look. So like the saying says, you don't want your brows to walk into a room before you do. And if you have very prominent features and you have too thin brows, then it makes those prominent features look even more outstanding on your face. So that's why balance is very important. And that's why people have this fascination with making sure their brows complement their look. So we want to make sure when we're doing this service for our clients that we're balancing out the entire look with the brows. So their facial features, the spacing of their brows, the length of their brows, we want everything to balance and incorporate that individual client's look. And definitely, good brows will take years off too. So what exactly is brow lamination and how does it work? So what brow lamination is, it's adding fullness and volume to your existing brows. So it's not like permanent makeup or microblading. Brow lamination is absolutely pain-free. So we'll just go through quickly what the process is with the Thuya product, but I'm going to be showing you in the live demo. So if you have any questions, you can definitely ask me at that point. And if you have them, you can put them in the chat and we can always get back to them after. So I know, like me, I sometimes forget, so I need to jot it down, so I won't. So if you need to do that in the chat, please feel free to do that. So we apply the product to the eyebrow hairs. It's going to create a chemical reaction. And so what that chemical reaction does, it lifts the hairs up. Then we're going to shape the brow and then it's tinted. This treatment lasts approximately about 4 weeks, and it does not use ink like microblading or powder brow. And it's not a permanent process. It's a semi-permanent, meaning it lasts up to 4 weeks. But your client can always come in and you can make modifications to the service the next time they do come in. So as their new hairs grow in, their existing shape will come in. So here are some before and afters of the brow lamination. So what are the benefits? So if you're trying to get a client to come onto the brow lamination service, they're going to ask you, why should I do this? Well, here are some of the benefits that you can run through with your client. It's going to add length and volume to their existing brows. It's good for thick, thin, unruly, curly brows, straight brow, because it's going to give it more ability where people are going to be able to easily style it, even if their brows are straight. That's another question that I get. And I tell them, well, do you want to be able to style your brows easily, even if they are straight? That's what the brow lamination is going to do. It's to make those brows easier to style. So the result is natural looking brows with a fuller shape. And again, your brows will be richer in color when you do the tint, and they're going to look healthier because they're going to have that nice sheen from the tinting as well. And no makeup. So if it's a hot day like today, you don't have to worry about sweat piling on your brow pencil or your brow pencil being moved by the sweat. If you have to blot your face, there's no permanent tattooing and there's no pain. And I think everyone really likes the no pain aspect. So this is just a quick run through. We do have a brow lamination kit. It comes in a really cute case that's easy to transport, easy to store. It has what you'll need for the brow lamination. It has your regenerating cream, your neutralizer, your permanent gel, and a spoolie and some orange wood sticks so that you can do a complete brow lamination. And I just want to run through quickly the products, which I'll go to in more detail. But the permanent gel is a 15-minute application. Once you remove that, then you would go in with the neutralizing cream, which is a 15-minute application. And we're going to also use this product, which is a pre-smoothening. What this does is it helps with unruly gray hairs. It's going to help to calm them down and make them easier to perm and tend. Okay, and let's go to the next one. So what I'm going to do now, there's also the BTX filler, which if time permits, I'd like to get to show you how to use. It's going to do a filling and plumping action. It has your grapeseed, your rose hip, your hyaluronic acid, and your keratin. What that's going to do is hydrate and plump up those hairs to give your client even thicker, fuller brows. And this can also be used on lashes as well. Now, if you're not using the BTX filler, you're going to use the regenerating cream on every Thuya service that you perform. This is also a great product that you would give your client as an aftercare. It contains vitamin E. It's also going to help with the natural oxidants to revitalize and repair the hair. And it's also going to help hydrate and keep them nourished. So profitability, I want to run through that quickly because we're in a business, so we need to cover some business aspects of it. So the average brow lamination will take anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, and most people are charging anywhere from about $70 to $90 per application. So your lash lift kit will cost you approximately about $90 Canadian, and you will have approximately 30 brow laminations from that one kit. So your possible revenue is $2,100 and up with just the one lash lift kit. And keep in mind that these 30 brow laminations may be repeat customers that are coming back for the same service for, let's say, the whole summer. So it's not necessarily you have 30 new clients. It could be like 5 clients that come back 6 times or 6 clients that come back 5 times for the brow lamination. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to get set up for our demo. So I'll just be a moment. I'm going to put my model and the view screen and have her ready so that you can see how the Thuya product works. So just bear with me while I just set up the camera by the bed so we can get the demo started, okay? Does that sound good to everyone? Perfect. So give me a moment and I'll be right back. So I'm still here, guys. I'm just setting up. There we go. I want to get the camera. Everything is set up. Okay. Won't be much longer. I can definitely do. Want me to raise the back of the bed a little low for you? Or you want something behind there? Okay, let's see. Let's see if this will help your neck. Perfect. I'm just getting my model comfortable, guys. I'm just gonna launch the app here. Okay, so just be a moment. So you might see the screen go dark for a second just because I'm just going to put the camera on. Moment. Okay. I have like 1,000 windows open. Okay. Sorry about the rough ride, guys. Are you? Yeah. Okay. Yes, I'll move her over. I'm still locating, guys. We're almost there. Let me move her.
Yeah, I think that was better.
Okay, perfect.
So that whole bar in the way is gonna be fine.
Yes.
This part,
This is all the logistics, guys, of setting up.
there's no little bit-
How does that look or go
It
out? a
looks
little?
good, but ask them as well. The light might be affected. So,
And then I think it's richer color without the light.
take light off.
Yeah, because it just washes her out a bit. Guys, how does that look? You can just put in the chat. Is everyone able to see everything? Is that close enough?
Sorry, does it look so?
Sorry, we're just making sure that lens is sharp for you. Yeah, way better. Okay, perfect. Better, guys?
The
Yes.
picture was going back to that. Yeah.
Maybe I'm too close in. Let's
Again?
center her back.
Yeah.
Yeah, the overcast.
Just looks so.
The lights are off, right?
What if you do field view? Try different field view. Exposure. That would you. Oh, it says. Low light compensation. What's that?
I think it makes,
Oh, auto white balance. Try that. Click on the purple part. Do the top one too. Low light. Nice. Maybe it's just mine. It's just.
it might be my screen too, right?
Oh, okay.
Guys, is that okay? I'm just trying to make adjustments.
On the ring light. Like,
That might actually be better.
let me just see. Price one. Go the other way then.
Yes, it's
better,
it
right?
is sharper. Guys, do you think that's sharper now with just the ring light? Just
Yeah,
you
see, I
can,
can see the brows now.
yes.
Get them to tell you, and then if it's
Guys,
good,
just let me know if we're good and then I can get started on the demo. I want to make sure that everything is sharp. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Okay, I'll go this way. Okay. So guys, I'm gonna get started. Thank you so much for your patience. Bearing with me in this time. A little bit away from. Perfect.
Here for me. Oh, the light did something again. Or is that just me?
Yeah, that's good. Still good? Okay, okay, perfect. That's perfect. Thank you so much for your help. Okay, so this is, everyone can see. So we're gonna evaluate, first thing you wanna do when you're doing a brow lamination, you wanna evaluate your client's brows. You wanna see areas where you can improve, and this should be done during the initial consultation. So my client has some grays in her brows. They're finer brows, but she does have a complete brow line, so they go from start to finish. You may have a client that has missing hairs, but the brow lamination is for everybody. So when we're doing this, what we're looking is to help improve our client's brows and the structure and the shape. So the first thing we're going to do is actually clean the brows. So there are two cleansers. It's a two-step process. Thuya has a lot of other cleansing products, but today we're going to use the eye makeup remover. Let me balance down here. There you go. So we're going to use this one. There's two. There's a biphase one. This one has to be shaken up. This is more so if your client wears waterproof makeup or just makeup in general. But this one's used as they use the makeup. If they don't use makeup, you can go straight to the water-based makeup remover. Now, this one should always be used with your client. This is the first or second step in the cleansing process. Okay, so I'm just going to start by cleansing her brow area. I would use the biphase one as well, but she didn't. Have lots of people show up for their brow or lash service with full makeup on their lash brow area. So it's always a good note when you're doing a follow-up call with the client to always tell them if they can avoid wearing any eye makeup. Okay, so is my voice still fluctuating now? Let me see if I change the mic. Give me 1 second. Okay, so I switched the mic to the camera mic. How do I sound now? It's good? Okay, perfect. It was using my laptop, so I guess it was carrying. If there's any, okay, perfect. Thank you, guys. Thank you, my team. Okay, so I'm just gonna cleanse her brows. And you wanna make sure you do the skin as well, because this process, there will be a little bit of tinting on the skin. Just sort of make sure we get everything cleaned. Okay, so that's the first step, is you want to definitely clean the brows. The next step of the process is that we're going to actually do the permanent gel on the brows. So you can use a protection cream that we have. If you're using the protection cream, I recommend you to use it at least 2 millimeters away from where the last hair that you see on the outside of the brow. The reason being is that with the brow lamination, you want to make sure that you're hitting all those hairs, even the little ones at the top, right? So leave yourself, if you're using the barrier cream, which I'll show you how to apply it. You would leave it, but I prefer to use this only when I'm doing the tinting just to prevent excessive staining. But if you're new to the perming process and you're concerned, you can put it outside of the brow line if you're doing the perm. But I don't think you necessarily need to, but it's definitely important when you're doing the tinting so your client doesn't go home with excessive staining. So I have my permanent gel here. So the Thuya, when I can figure out the camera depth. I feel I'm getting closer. Okay, there we go. So this is the Thuya permanent gel. I'm just going to see if I can focus it in. Sorry. Okay, so this is the permanent gel. It comes in an aluminum. I moved too fast. It comes in an aluminum tube with a nozzle. Now, if this is the first time you're opening this product, there is going to be a white ring around the neck of the bottle. You would remove that white ring and then put the lid back on. What that does is it will puncture the aluminum seal that's inside the nozzle, and then you can use as necessary. Now, if this is a product like my own that you've already used before, you're going to make sure that you excrete the first drop of product. The reason why in this little nozzle area, there's old product sitting in there. You don't want to use that. So just make sure you excrete it out, and then your new product will go everything after that. So it's probably about the size of a medium rice grain. And you can see the difference color. That one had a pinkish tinge. This one that is newer product, not oxidized, it's very clear in color. So you want to make sure you're excreting out any of the permanent gel that might be caught between the nozzle and the lid. That way you're not using product that's not working on your client. Okay, so I'm going to start with the permanent gel. Now, because we know that gray hairs are generally coarser, we have a product, actually, I want to show you that, is the pre-smoothing. What the pre-smoothing does is it's going to soften all those hairs. So if you have a client with coarser hair, we can use this product first. So I'm going to show you this product actually, because our client actually has a lot of coarse gray hairs in there. Now this is like a liquid form, so be careful when you're applying it around the eye area. I just do like a drop on my glove away from the client's eye and just smooth it in there. So you can just put a drop on your glove away from the client and just rub it in there. You can also do it with a brush if you have a dampen dish. You can just add a drop to the dampen dish and just dip it in with the brush. So what the pre-smoothing does is it's for coarse and unruly hairs. It's going to make them softer. It's going to make the permanent gel easier to penetrate the cortex of the hair so that you're going to get better results. This is only used on the brow area. The pre-smoothing solution is not used on the lashes at all. It's just specifically for brows. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat box. I can see the questions from here. So you don't have to wait till the end if you do have questions, because I'll try to address any questions that you have as we go. So this pre-smoothing, I'm really making sure that I'm saturating the brows. And this stays on her brows for 5 minutes. I really want to make sure I saturate those grays because I want them to be a team player. As we all know, if you've ever worked on gray hairs, they have a different texture. There's no melanin in those hairs. So they kind of are, they're definitely more coarse, but they also grow in an unruly way where they do their own thing. So after you've placed the pre-smoothing, you're just going to let that penetrate the hairs. And make sure you get all, see, she has a lot of finer hairs at the bottom of her brow shape. And I want to make sure I'm getting those too. So I'm just really making sure that with the brush that I'm applying to all the hairs. Now, if your client had thicker brows, you want to make sure that you're applying it front and back. You can see that motion that I'm doing with my brush. I'm doing a front and back motion. For thicker hairs, you want to make sure that you're getting the multi-layers and that you're applying the pre-smoothing solution to all of the hairs. So pre-smoothing, key to remember, it's only for the brows. It's great for super thick, super coarse hairs. So who would you use the pre-smoothing solution on? Well, if you have male clients, because male clients typically tend to have thicker brows, you can use that before you do the brow lamination. Your clients who have some grays, or if your client has all grays in their brows, you can use the pre-smoothing solution. So what it's going to do is just going to really help those brow hairs take the perm a lot easier, and they're going to be more controlled and uniform. Now that stays on for approximately 5 minutes. Now, by the time, because we don't cover this, by the time we are the 5 minutes over, most of this product will be completely dried into the hairs. If you do see some shine or any kind of glistening, you can just use a cotton swab to just remove any excess moisture from the actual brow hairs. Is everyone clear on the pre-smoothing solution for the eyebrows? Now it is a liquid base, so it's best applied with a brush or how I showed you initially, just a little bit on your glove, and then you can take it to the brows. Just because it's more of a watery consistency, you don't want to apply it from the bottle to the client's skin, just because it's a dropper form, but you can actually let it run. So I like to apply it either in a dampened dish with a brush, or just apply a little bit to my glove and then just smooth it into the brows. So is anyone right now performing this service using Thuya? Okay, perfect. So if there's any questions that you have on performing the service or the product, please feel free to ask. If you haven't and you have more questions about the brow lamination process itself, you're welcome to ask in the chat room there. Now, if your client has thicker brows, you can definitely brush the solution through with a spoolie. Because I find that the brush was fine to get all my clients' hairs, I didn't really need to brush it through with the spoolie. Okay, so this has about another minute, and then I'm just going to see if there's any moisture on it. Sometimes what I do is if I have a dry finger, I just like to just run it through to see if there's any. There's still a little moisture there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to blot it. With the cotton round. So that's the pre-smoothing solution. If your client needs a little bit longer, it's fine. You can leave it up to 6 minutes, but generally 5 minutes has worked for the majority of people that I have done. But remember, that's just a prep. The perming solution, the permanent gel is going to do the real work now. Okay, so the permanent gel, as I showed you before, you're going to use the amount according to your client's brow thickness. I like to say generally start with less because you can always go back and add more. So initially, I would start with like a size about that much, like 2 little drops. And then if I need more, I would go back and add some more. But the thing is about product, you don't want to waste it because you can't go back in and add it back into the tube. So it's always less is more is a golden rule with your brow laminations. So as I'm applying this, I really want to get her brows saturated. So I'm going front and back with the permanent gel solution. I want to make sure that I get all of those hairs covered. Now, this is important for all, even if your client doesn't have super thick hairs, but it's especially important if your client has thicker hairs that you're covering all of the hairs and all of the layers with the permanent gel. Now, this is formulated to work and make sure that it doesn't over process the hairs. You might hear from your clients, well, I'm concerned about my brows being over processed. Well, Thuya has this product specially formulated that's not going to over process the brows. It's actually going to help with the brow hair nutrients. So the process is going to give you results, but it's not damaging to the hairs. And if you have some coarser hairs that are just, I don't know if you can see, there's one just standing up. I like to just take a dollop of product and just weigh it down. But the key to this is make sure that you really saturate the hairs. So this is pretty saturated. I used actually those 2 dots already. So I'm going to add another 2 dots for the other brow. And I'm just going to make sure I go front and back, really push those hairs. The great thing about the Thuya brushes is that they're really formulated to work with the product. So I can use this brush for tinting, but I can also use it for my permanent gel and my neutralizer application. Now, the key thing is if your client is looking for definition, the perm is not really going to provide the shape. It's going to break down the hair bonds so that it's going to take the shape when you apply the neutralizer. But as a rule of thumb, I really like to just style the brows as I'm applying the permanent gel. What that does is it helps me see the shape that I want to take for the client, and it gives me a little opportunity to restyle the brows as needed. Now, I'm also going to be using a wrap with our client. What that does is it really helps the product penetrate all of the hairs, right? The heat from her skin will help trap the heat into the brows, which will make the process complete. You can do it without the osmotic film, but I prefer to do it with, especially if the client has shorter hairs, it gives you an opportunity to really press those hairs down and to get them really fixed to the shape that you want them in. So I'm just gently brushing these out. You can use a spoolie if you like, or even an orange wood stick. If your client has thicker brows, you can really separate them with the orange wood stick. And then I like the flat part of the orange wood stick just to take them down a bit. Okay, so I'm going to start my counter, but I'm also going to put the osmotic film on. Any excess, you want to remove any excess that you don't need permanent solution. So you can either do it with a spoolie, or I like to use the flat part of the orange wood stick. And I removes my osmotic film, but I'll show you. They come pre-shaped, so they're really easy to use. You'll probably need about 2 pieces, one for the permanent gel and one for the neutralizer. Now I'm really pressing them down on her because I want to get the full length. It will give her a press down look, but we can always fluff them up later. But this will ensure that I get the full length of the brow when I press it down tight. And I add the paper Kleenex on top. This just gives a little bit of comfort to your client, so that as they're getting the process done, that they're able to, not to have this big light in front of their face. So let's talk a little bit about the actual Thuya permanent gel. The great thing about the Thuya, like I said, they come in the aluminum tins, which are really easy to use. I like the aluminum tins because you can really make sure you get all of that product up, because once you press them down at the bottom, it moves all the product up. All of these are factory sealed, so every time you get one, it's very fresh. There's an aluminum seal across the top. So you know that as soon as that comes from the factory, it's already equipped not to oxidize. That keeps it fresh and sealed for security and product purity. So when you use it, you're going to, inside the tube itself, there is a little puncture. You're going to remove the ring from around the neck, put the lid on, that'll puncture the seal. The first time you use it, you don't have to excrete any product, but subsequent times, you're going to, okay, I'll repeat that, no worries. So what I was showing is that because it's an aluminum tube, that you can easily move the product up. But when you get the product, a brand new one, it comes with a plastic ring around the neck. Once you remove that ring around the neck, there's a little tube that punctures the aluminum seal in here, and you apply it down, and then your product's good to go. When you first time you use the product, you don't need to excrete any of the tube because it's all fresh, it's factory sealed. Subsequent times, you will definitely excrete the first little bit of drop that's in between this section here. Did everyone see that? Am I unfrozen? Just give me a yes or no. Good. Okay, perfect. So another thing about the Thuya permanent gel, you get a good amount. You get 15 milliliters in the tube, as well as these products are good for 1 year after date of opening. So that's an extremely good amount of time for you to get in your 30 applications. So that's another thing. As long as you keep them in proper conditions, you can use this product up to a year after opening, which is really good value for your money, because there are other products that expire within a few months of opening, but this one you have a full year. So they've made sure that the product is able to preserve itself for that time frame. And as a professional, you're going to get maximum value for your dollar because you have up to a year to use the products. Actually, everything in the Thuya line is good for a year, with the exception of the glues that you will use for your lash lifts. And those glues are good for 6 months after date of opening. So another thing about the permanent gel, this will be the same product that you would use for your brow lamination and your lash lift. So you're using one product to get 2 services, which is really amazing. Now, another thing, when you're doing the brow lamination, you're going to check this process. I would say halfway in, you want to check it at least every 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes or so, just to see how the brows are processing. What I'm doing here is I'm seeing, are they going the way that I'm brushing them? Are they staying or are they bouncing back? There's a little gray guy in here, he's bouncing back. So this is going to help me to evaluate the timing, as well as if I need to add more permanent gel. This one that is a little stubborn, this course here, I'm going to add a little more permanent gel to it. This helps you save your time, because you don't want to finish the service completely and then realize that, oh, there are some hairs that didn't process. So when you're checking it at least 2 times during the process, you're able to see what hairs are being processed and what aren't. Like, as for her gray hair, I'm going to put a little more permanent gel on there, just so that we can penetrate it a little more. Like I said, those hairs are stubborn and they want to do what they want to do, but we don't want to send our client out unhappy with the service. So remember to check the permanent process along the way. You can do it 3 times, 2 times is usually enough. If I have someone's brows who I've never done before and I'm not sure how they process, I like to check it just 3 times, 3.5 minutes and each time. And I'm going to check this side brow to see how it's processing. So what I'm doing, you can use your brush or you can use a spoolie. What you're looking for is that when you brush the hair one way, it's staying there. If you have that hair do a slow bounce back, or it goes right away back, then you know that that hair is not processing at the same rate as the other hairs. And in that instance, you want to go back and add a little more perming solution to that. If it's one hair out of the bunch, you can just take a little bit of a dollop on your brush, like about a pea size, and just apply it directly to that hair. She's got some grays in there, so I'm just adding some dollops to the grays, because those ones are not processing with the other ones, because they're still very stiff in their shape. They should be very soft in the shape. That means that the permanent gel is penetrating those hairs. What this is doing is breaking down the bonds, making the hair malleable, so that when we go and lock in the shape with the neutralizer, they're going to stay and be able to form in that shape. But if you miss a whole bunch of hairs, or even one hair, you're going to have one hair doing its own thing and everything else is going to be going in the upwards direction. So that's key thing, to try and catch any of those unruly hairs while you're doing the actual perming process, by checking it and lifting the film every 3.5 minutes, just to see how it's processing. So any questions about that so far? Now, if you're doing a lash lift, you would also check the hairs too, but it's not as important, because with the lash lift, those lashes are glued down to the actual silicone roller, so they pretty much don't move and they're very fixed in a shape. With the brows, it's a little more important, because we don't use glue when we're doing the brow shape, so we have to make sure that those hairs are processing. And the film really helps that too, because if you ever put the film on the client, you can feel that the brows feel a little bit warmer, and that's normal, because it's just the heat from the skin being trapped under the film to process the brows a lot easier. Here we go. Yes, this stays on for 15 minutes. This also provides you the time to do a double service. So if this client came to me and she wanted to do a lash lift at the same time, as soon as I finish putting on the brow lamination perm, I can go right to the lids and put on the permanent gel on the lashes. I would put her lashes on a roller and everything, and then put on the permanent gel. So it affords you the ability to do both. But keep in mind, Thuya is a double product. It's a 2-for-1. The client's also getting a brow lamination, but these are also treatments. So that's why the services do take this amount of time, because they're actually treating and hydrating. You know, when you go into the salon and you get your hair done, and they have to give you like a deep conditioning, hydrating treatment, and it has to stay on for a specific amount of time. Well, that's what the Thuya product is. It's a conditioning treatment that's going to help strengthen and nourish the brows at the same time that we're chemically treating the brows. So they're getting a treatment as well as a cosmetic service. Yes, it is awesome. A lot of people ask, well, you know, what about the timing? It would be great. They could probably cut down the timing if we didn't have any of the treatments that we have included in the products, but it's actually a treatment at the same time. This also affords you the ability to do other services in the meanwhile. Definitely you could do a lash tint. If this client came in for a lash tint, you could do that as well. I'm just watching the time here. We've got a few more minutes, but I'm going to go back in and check. I want to check with the spoolie to show you how that looks with the spoolie. Just make sure it's a clean and dry spoolie that you're using. You don't want to add any kind of moisture into the perming process because that will, you know, impact the effectiveness of the perm. So I'm just brushing. These are really looking great. They're doing how I want them to do. As you can see, they're pretty much laying down, which is what we want. And then we'll get more into the shaping just before I put the neutralizer. Her brows really go to the side. So what I want to do is give them the maximum height. We're still going to shape the brows after, but for the maximum height, you know, you do up and then to the side, if that makes sense. Like everyone who says, oh, I don't want a lamination because they look at the brow laminations on Instagram. As you're doing this and building your business, take before and afters of your models. Because I honestly, when a client comes in and they've never had a brow lamination and I don't send them to Instagram is not my first bet. I like to send them to the manufacturer's website. So I'll send them to Thuya's website to look at some of the before and after models there. In salon, I like to have my own before and after pictures that I show the clients so that they can see real life models, people with all different types of brows and how they look after getting the brow lamination, even male clients too. This is also a big industry for the male clients. So you want to make sure that you're doing before and afters for your male and that you're grabbing that male clientele as well. That gray hair is still being unruly, so I'm going back and adding some more permanent gel to it. Another thing about the brow lamination is to promote this to all your clients. When I have a client coming in to just get like their brows cleaned up, and I mention them, hey, have you heard about brow lamination? You'll be surprised that if they're not really on social media, they might not have heard about it. This is an excellent service as well for your mature clients. When we get older, our brows start to get crazy. So if they want to keep their brows, you don't want them plucking them all out because the unruly hairs do add to the shape and the volume. You want to tell them about the brow lamination. Let them know that you have a way to control those brows and how the brow lamination will benefit them. You know, if this is a service that your client only has to come in for every 4 weeks, that's easy. Most people go to the hair salon every 4 weeks. If this is just something they have to do to complement their beauty routine, every 4 weeks is not a lot. So I really like to promote this service to as many people as I can. And really you creating your own before and after database of your models really helps. Because I like to show people this is how brow laminations can look. You send them to social media, they're going to see extremes of it. And everyone is not an extreme person. They want to just have something that's going to complement them. And that's not going to make them stand out, but it's going to make them be noticed in the way that they want to be noticed. I'm just trying to focus back the camera. I feel like I'm doing some kind of exercise here. Okay. So that's what a key thing. I really promote your brow laminations to your mature clients, to your younger clients, of course. They've seen it on Instagram and social media, and they want those extreme brows. So give it to them. But you're also going to have the clients that just want their brows, and that's what the lamination also gives them, right? So years of over plucking. This client, she she used to pluck her brows, and now as we get older, even I can testify to this, that your brows don't grow back as quickly as they used to. Everything slows down. The cell turnover process gets slower. So this is going to be something, we're going to give her that extra bit of height to her brows, and she's going to have that, the brows, maybe not as perfect as when she was in her 20s, but it's going to be pretty close. We're adding some more height, which gives her more volume to the brows. Am I in focus now? I think it looks sharper now. I saw when it went out of focus. Okay. So I'm just going to brush these up. It's almost time to take this off. I really like how they are all going in the formation that I want. You can see when I brush them over to the left, they stay there, right? When I brush them up, they stay there. This is what we're looking for. They're staying where you brush them. And make sure you even do the fine hairs at the end, because all hairs matter. So we have to make sure that we get all the hairs completely permed. I'm not going to use any water. I don't want to add any water to this process. I'm using a dry cotton round to remove the excess perm. Am I in focus now? I think I am, but if I'm not, let me know. So what I'm doing is trying to also keep the integrity of the brows. I am moving this up because I don't want to do a windshield wiper. This perm has not been locked in yet because we haven't added the neutralizer. So I want to make sure I keep the integrity of the brows. So when I remove the permanent gel, I'm removing it upwards. Okay. Then I'm going to do the other side. And the same thing, remove it upwards. And I'm happy to report that that one little gray hair is now part of the team. And that's why it's important checking. You don't want to get through the whole process and get here and then realize, oh my gosh, there was a hair that I didn't process or that didn't take the permanent gel. So that's why the important part is checking every few minutes. I would say every 3 minutes or so. Twice, just to make sure that the permanent gel has penetrated all of the hairs. Okay, are we good with that so far, the permanent gel process, guys? Just give me a thumbs up or a yes. And I'm going to move to the next step, which is the neutralizer. Perfect. So as I was telling you, the permanent gel, that breaks down the shape. So think about if you're making like dehydrated pasta. When you put it in the boiling water, it actually becomes soft and pliable and edible. That's what this is doing, not the edible part, but it's making it soft and pliable, these brows, right? Now what we're going to do is add the neutralizer. This neutralizer is going to lock in the shape. It's going to make these brows stay up. If we don't add a neutralizer to this, this shape will be very unmanageable. It's very important because we've opened up the hair follicle and the cortex of the hairs, and we've made them open to accept new products. So it's going to accept the neutralizer, which closes them up. Now, if I was to mix the permanent gel with the neutralizer, it cancels out the shape. So you want to make sure that you remove all the permanent gel from the brows and that you don't have any traces. So once you do that, you can just go over it with a clear cotton round and make sure that there's no pink traces on the cotton round. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the neutralizer. After I bring this back in focus, there we go. So the neutralizer comes in a different tube than the permanent gel. It comes in a plastic tube. You get the same quantity, 15 mils, and it's also good for 1 year after opening. I don't know why this keeps focusing out. I think I've moved too fast. Let me go get this. See if it can focus, if it comes back to focus. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can focus it a little here. Okay, last time I got it back. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the neutralizer, you're gonna use about the same quantity as you did with the permanent gel. I would say like a pea-size amount. You can see that. Important thing to remember is to cap up all your products after opening it. It's important because you don't want to oxidize your product. When we leave our caps off, even if it's like while we're doing this service, that ages your product and it's not going to be as active as if you were to put the cap on it right away. So it's very important to make sure that you're capping your products right after opening it. And as you notice, I did not introduce any water to this service. Reason being is because we don't want to add anything we don't need right now. And the water is not necessary for this service. We've just opened up all of her hair follicles, cuticle cortex, sorry. We don't want to add any excessive moisture because that's going to weigh down the shape as well. Now we have a cream neutralizer and we also have a liquid neutralizer. I would say you can use either, but the liquid is probably more preferable on the lashes. But if someone has super thick brows, you're also welcome to use the liquid neutralizer on the brows. But because my client's brows are not super thick, I'm going to use the cream because there's not as much hairs to absorb the liquid. So you want to make sure that you're really coating these hairs. You can move them, get front and back, but just make sure that you're putting them back in the formation that you want them to be. Now hers are thinner, so I'm able to move them with the orange wood stick, but if you have a thicker clientele's hairs, you might want to just brush them back and forth before you put the neutralizer on, just to make them a little bit softer and easier for you to remove them. But with hers, I can do it with the orange wood stick. Now you can use the brush or the orange wood stick to apply the neutralizer. And you want to make sure you're getting every single one of those hairs. And keep in mind, you should be styling it in the general shape that you want the brows to be in. Like you're going to do any kind of real shaping after, like with the if you do waxing or threading after, because we do all hair removal services after the chemical services. But I want to style them in a way that I know I'm going to shape them. That way, when I go in and shape them, I know exactly what I'm doing. Now, if your client came in the day or two before to get them shaped, you're definitely welcome to do this after, but do not perform it this if you do a shaping first. Just because it's going to leave the skin more susceptible to a reaction, because when you do any kind of hair removal, you're actually gently exfoliating the skin. And you don't want to exfoliate the skin and then go and apply chemicals on top to it, on top of the skin. That's going to lead to more likely your client having a reaction to the chemicals. That's why we always do the chemical service first and then the hair removal after. So just press it down so that you can see. Now, the difference between the permanent gel and that, you don't need to check the neutralizer. We don't need to go back in, but I do want to make sure that the osmotic film is covering the entire brow area. So as you're doing this for your client, you can start deciding or getting ready your tints on what tints you want to use for the client. Now, because you've done the chemical service, the tinting service is not going to be the complete entire duration of the 15 minutes. But this is also a great opportunity while this is processing to speak to your client about aftercare and what they'll need to do and how regularly they'll need to come back. As said in the PowerPoint, this is a service that generally your client will come back every 4 weeks for. And it's always great when they get the lamination in addition to the tint. because that's going to really help give them the definite benefit of the brow, right? Because her brows, everyone's brows is washed out. When you add the tint, that revitalizes the color and gives that extra depth to the hair and actually fullness to the hairs as well. You definitely can ask your client if they're experiencing any burning. Are you experiencing any kind of burning or irritation?
I felt the tingling for a second, but it stopped.
But that's it. She felt a little tingling, and that's normal, but definitely you want to check in with your client every few minutes. Redness around the skin is also normal as well. But you definitely will check in with them and see if they're experiencing any, and warmth is also a normal part of this as well. They might feel a little bit warm, but that's okay. The burning you don't want to feel. A little warmth is normal. A little bit of brief tingling is normal as well. Burning, stinging, those are all words that are key words that you'll want to check the product and remove it from your client. Another way to avoid this is we want to definitely do a test for our client. So if your client's coming into the salon, you want to do a test to see test for sensitivities. So when a client's coming in and they're saying, hey, I'm thinking of getting this brow lamination done and a tint, can you tell me about that? I said, sure. And then you go through the whole service, but I would also ask, can we do an allergen test for the products for you? And what you would do is you would take any product that you're using. So if we're doing a brow lamination with a tint, we're going to test the permanent gel, the neutralizer. We're going to also test the special solution, which is our oxidant, and we're going to test the tint. Those are the products we want to test on the client to see if there's going to be any kind of reaction. There's a couple of places that you can test the tint. You can do it on the inside of the wrist area here. What I like to do is also behind the ear. That way, if there's any reaction, it's not like totally visible so everyone can see. And what you're going to do is you're going to take a cotton bud with each of the products on it, and you're just going to put a dab on the skin, either on the wrist or behind the ear, and leave it on for 1 minute and then remove it. And then you're going to send your client home and you'll wait to see within the next 48 hours if they've had any kind of reaction. That's a good invite for you to call the client and say, I'm just calling to see how you reacted to the products. Is everything good to go for us to schedule the brow lamination and tinting services? So that really is a great way to invite you to follow up with the client with the service by just checking in to see if they had any reaction to any of the products. Now, if they did have a reaction, that doesn't mean that that client is definitely a no-go. I would definitely say to the client, if there was a reaction, let's wait and see and test you in another few months to see if you'll have another reaction. Because sometimes it can do certain things, allergens, seasonal. So you can definitely invite that client to come back again to test and see if they have a reaction. But I wouldn't proceed with it if the client had any kind of reaction to the product. So do you guys have any other kind of questions within regards to the product? I'm going to show you some of the other prep products that Thuya has. We have a lot of products that you can use for the cleansing. Our staple products are the two that I showed you, the biphase makeup remover and the eye makeup remover water base, but we also make a scrub for the brow area as well as a paste and a brow shampoo. So these are all products that you can use to achieve the best results with your brow lamination. So as this is neutralizing, you don't want to bother it too much, but I like to use the film because, like I said, it presses down the brow shape as well. And you kind of really get to make sure that all of the hairs are covered because you can see it through the film and that it's pushing any product that's on top back down again. Now the Thuya has some great colors for the tint. Now you definitely want to discuss to your client what type of look they're going for in regards to their brow tinting. Maybe they might want to match their hair color if they've got their hair, or maybe they just they've got their hair tinted or dyed a new color and want to enhance the color of their brows. You can do that all with the Thuya tints. Now with my client here today, she is going to dye her hair. So she has more of a softer brown, but because her brows are thinner, I'm gonna do more of a black brown. So they'll be darker to enhance the shape, but not overwhelming because they're still gonna complement her hair color. So I want to really give the fullness and more shape to the brows. But this is stuff that you would discuss with your client, what color brows they're getting. Most clients, in my experience, they look to you, the expert, to give them insight on how their brows should be. And I like to show them, the Thuya website has really great pictures for models' brows. So you can always definitely help them choosing the brow color. It's always best to match the natural hair color. But if they have their hair dyed, they may want to match the color of their hair that's dyed. Now, like I said, we don't need to check this. This has another 3 minutes on the timing. But do you guys have any questions while we're waiting? Another thing I want to go over is the storage of the products. You want to make sure that you're storing them in a place that doesn't have excessive heat and excessive light exposure. Preferably if they're stored somewhere in a cabinet would be the best ideal, because yes, this is for 15 minutes as well. So especially you want to store them in a place that is not overly excessively exposed to light and heat. So it's 15 minutes for the permanent. So I'll recap all the timing so far. So it's 5 minutes for the pre-smoothing solution. And what that does is soften the brows. And then it's 15 minutes for the permanent gel. And then 15 minutes for the neutralizer. And at this point, I'm still not going, in the next few minutes when I remove this, I'm still not going to add any kind of water to her brows. I'm going to do a dry removal, because what we're going to do next is we're going to go into tinting her brows. It's going to start with this one because I put this one on first. In the same manner, I'm still removing them up. Just making sure I'm getting all the solution off. Now, although I said I'm not going to use any water, we do have the eye makeup remover with curcuma, which is turmeric, which you can use if you feel that you need to clean up the brow area. Maybe if your client is excessively oily or you want to make sure there's no residue on the skin, you can definitely use that before you apply the tint. So for my client, I'm going to use a combination of the tints. So you can see the color here. This is the brown and the deep black. I'm going to do a 50-50 combination with the color, just so I can get a very nice, intense black brown. So the same thing with the tints as I showed you with the permanent gel. You want to excrete the first bit of product, because as you can see, as I excrete it, it goes from super dark to a light brown color. This is all old product here, so I won't be using that. I'm going to get rid of that because the same thing, it gets trapped in between the two, and that is already oxidized product, so it's not going to be as effective. And the reason that you can tell it, it'll go super dark and then it'll go super light. Even the black does that. So the first step I'm going to do is I'm going to provide the special protector dye. So what this is a skin protection cream for her brow area. So I'm not excessively tinting her skin. You can apply it with a cotton round or with your finger. I'm just going to apply it to the outside. And it's a petroleum-based product, but I'm keeping far away from the brow hairs because I want to make sure that I'm getting all of those hairs tented when I do the tenting. And you don't need this to be excessively thick for it to work. Just a little bit on the skin will actually help it. So I'm just putting it on and just smearing it on the skin. I'm not even doing a big buildup because you really don't need that much of the product in order for it to protect the skin. It just has to have a very nice light coating. So this client gave me a call to do 50-50, but I would listen to the client, because when you do the consult, you want to see that you're consulting the client. If you have a better recommendation for the client, you are definitely welcome to express that and what you have done in the past, which compliment. But again, I like to put my 2 cents in, my expert opinion. But again, if the client insists on something, definitely I would advise the client best practice, but listen to the client as well, because they're there for the service and it is their face and they also know what they like, right? Like I did have a client once who wanted the deep black, so I'm just mixing this about 50-50. So 50, I'm trying to get it. You can see that's the tint here. And this is the special solution. So this is the oxidant. It's a cream oxidant I'm using. And I'm going to mix them all together till it's really creamy. I did have a client that was insisting that she wanted black brows, back to my story. And I was like, well, we normally don't do black just because it can look really harsh. And we can do it like a super black brown, but she was insistent that she wanted the black brows. So I said, sure, we can definitely do that for you. And it looked really good on her. The reason why it looked good is she had her hair dyed super jet black. So it really complemented her whole face. She had bangs and everything. So it really complemented her look. So we can add our advice, but we can also listen to the client as well. This is very important that you listen to your client and also help them make the best decisions. So this gets really creamy fast. I'm just showing you here. So this is ready to apply. So I'm applying with the brush. Really making sure I'm coating all of her lash hair, her brow hair. Sorry, I do lashes too. So really coating it. If you like, you can outline it first with the brush. I usually apply it and then clean it up after. Like I said, if your client has multi-layers, you want to make sure you get in there and you really get those layers, moving those hairs back and front. To each, that's correct. That's about the size. Now, again, you might have clients that have a little more, a little less hair, and you need to adjust the amount of tint. Feel free to do that. But remember, the ratio is roughly about 50-50. So if you're using one dye and you're using the oxidant, you're going to do equal amounts, which is a really easy formulation to remember when you do the equal amounts. Now, you might have a client that doesn't want 50-50. Maybe they want a little more brown, a little less black. You're also able to do that. There's no real science. I just eyeball it, like this looks like 70%, this looks like 30%, and go from there. Now this one you don't need to cover up when you're doing the tint on the brows, just because these process on their own pretty good, where you don't need to cover it up. I find more so the permanent gel solutions do. I'm just going to grab a cotton round so I can clean up the excess tint. Now, because we've prepped her skin, it's taking the color quite nicely. Now, because we've also done the actual, perming, it's gonna take the color a lot quicker than if we didn't. I'm just cleaning up any excess tint here. And I'm still keeping the integrity of the shape of her brows as well. So this is going to stay on anywhere from about 8 minutes to 10 minutes. But you can watch it as it processes to see if your client needs more or less. But you want to make sure you're giving the product the full amount of time to do the color process. Okay. I'm just going to clean up the skin outside. That's where you have the protection. Now, all the areas that I put the tint on has her. I just really like my area neat. So I'm timing this, and then now if you wanted to do an ombre brow, you can definitely, within the first 3 minutes, you can take off the beginning part of the brows, which is probably what I'm going to do shortly. That gives a softened effect to the brows so that it's not like you have this straight brow with concentrated color. And definitely if you see some hairs, keep your brush and your palette available so you can go through and remove any or add some more color if you need to. So I'm just going to take this and start lifting a little bit of her color from the front. I'm just using this because I can actually scoop up the color. You definitely can use a cotton bud as well. And just the beginning point, I just want to remove it some. Okay. And if you see any areas that you feel you need a little more color, you definitely can go back and add a little in there. Here's the area underneath. I wanted to add a little more, but just be careful of the part where you have the protection cream, that you're not mixing the protection cream in there. This has another 2 minutes. And if you're going to remove the middle part, because with the ombre brow, you do a little bit at a time, right? You want to do, if you're doing 10 minutes, I would remove the first part in 3 minutes, the other part in 7 minutes, and the tail end stays on for the majority of the time, which would be to the last 10-minute duration. I'm going to soften it up a little bit in here. And a little bit in here. Because someone who has like softer brows, they sometimes don't want to go like to a very deep color. They still want it soft because they're used to seeing their brows that way. So I find the ombre brow works really good. And I like that for myself too when I'm doing my brow tint. And we're always going to leave the end part on longest because the tail has the fewest hairs. And generally, it's a good rule of thumb to make that the darkest. You know, when you're doing your pencil and your brows, you leave the tail part is really strong, no feather strokes, just a long line. And that's what you want to make it the more prominent part of the brow. It's the smallest part, but it's also going to be the more prominent part. Okay. So I'm just going to start with this brow because it's been on for about 8 minutes for her. Let's take a look. I'm doing a dry removal here. I'm getting just any excessive stain. Now this will lightly stain the skin. That's normal. And most clients like that. That'll last for at least 1 day or so. But the hair tinting of the hairs will actually last your client for up to 4 weeks. I'm just softening these lines. And I'm just going to go in with the cleaner after the makeup remover with curcuma and use that to take off any tint. I like that because it's balanced. Water is a little bit harsh sometimes. I'm going to just take off some of the excess tint on the skin with a clean cotton round and some of the remover. Because if your client has less hairs, the more the lining will show up. So you want to make it look soft and natural for your client. Once I move my big hands, you guys can see. Now with our scrub, if you use the Thuya scrub, that will also give you a lot more skin staining too. So if that's what your client desires, you can definitely use that. And that will help with the staining, because with the scrub, it has jojoba beads in it. You're definitely going to remove any dead skin that's laying on the surface. And that's going to help your client achieve like more skin staining, which is really nice. Because that gives the illusion of fuller brows as well. Another thing that I like to do, make sure that I take off everything, because she has a little more spots, and this brow, it's a little more bald. What I like to do is, before, I don't like to rinse out my brushes right away. I like to keep a little bit on there, and I like to just go on the areas that might have a little more skin and add a little more of the tint, so I get a little more staining, so your client gets that wow factor. But with repeated sessions, your client's also going to have improved brows overall. Okay, I wish I could, if I can zoom in. Yeah, I'm going to refocus. Okay. Are you guys able to see this? I'm going to see if I can zoom in a little more. Hold on, I'm going to see if I can zoom in this. Okay. Is this, can you guys see a little bit better now? Let me see. It was short. Okay. I don't know. I'm gonna go back to Linda and see if you guys can see it a little bit better. Is that a little bit better? Just let me know in the chat. Yes, okay, perfect. And then what you can also do is just fluff out the brows. I like to fluff them out even after I've done the lamination. It just gives a little bit of a softer effect. Now, you can trim the brows after this to show your client and do any kind of hair removal services after. That will really, the waxing I really prefer to do after, just because it takes up any excessive dye on the skin. It gives a really clean and sharp look to the brows. But this is a combination of the black and brown. So I'm just fluffing the brows up. Now you can tell your client these brows are going to be malleable. So she's going to be able to style them however way she wants. If she felt that you styled them a little too higher up, she has the ability to brush them and they go wherever she wishes. There you go. So they have the ability to be easily styled. There's no specific things that she'll have to do. I would avoid any excessive oily products in the brows. So if she does use the growth enhancements, serums, let her know that that can shorten the amount of time that her brows stay laminated because it does weigh down the shape. I would also let her know that for the first night to not sleep face into the pillow because the brows are still taking on their form and their shape. So be mindful, at least for the first night, how she sleeps. And because we've done the lift too, you want to advise your client not to be taking any excessive steam showers or maybe going to the gym the first day because humidity will also make the brows fall. So these are just rules for the first 24 hours that you want to advise your client to be mindful of. Because we're going to give them the tools so that they can have the best, time frame with their brows so they can keep their service for the longest amount of time. What we also do is we also finish with the regenerating cream. So that one's here. It's an eye and lash cream that we use. So I'm just going to apply this with a spoolie to the client's brows. And this has the sunscreens in it, so it's going to help with the actual protection of her brows. And the regenerating cream is great for your client to take home, which helps with the growth of her own brows as well. So do you guys have any questions for me so far? How do you like the Thuya brow lamination? It's great to see results with your clients and to give them what they desire. And the regenerating cream is that aftercare product that you want to make sure that each of your clients purchase. One tube will last them 6 months, so they will get maximum benefit out of that. So I want to thank you guys. If there's no questions, I will let you all get back to the beautiful weather. I appreciate you being here for the Thuya. Thank you so much, guys, and I look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. You take care. Thanks, guys. Bye.